Welcome to another beautiful episode of Unraveling Her with me, your host, Nikki Alaris. I'm super excited to get into this episode just because this is something I've struggled with for years, and it seemed like I had it really bad during my 2 years of college. I had a really bad writer's block. It was really hard for me to write, and I felt like my creativity wasn't flowing. It was because I was wrapped up in work and homework. It was just chaotic, and I was super overwhelmed, and my creativity wasn't flowing at all. My well of creativity was dry, and I felt numb. I felt stuck. There was so many components to why I was feeling that way too, which I won't get too far into, but I questioned myself. What does it mean to be a creative? What I see online is that to be a creative means to freely be. What society sees an artist to be is someone who's rogue, somebody who does whatever they want, and someone who feels liberated. And those are all good things to an extent. And I feel like people take it too seriously nowadays. And I don't know, the digital age we live in is so very unique because, in a way, posting things on social media is, in its way, an act of creativity. But I feel like people lose touch of their natural abilities to be creative. I apologize. I'm recording outside and you can hear crickets, dogs, cars, planes go by, so excuse the background noise. What I'm trying to say is that we all have our natural abilities that reflect our true craft. For me, I learned at an early age that I was going to be a writer. I've always had a love for words, and I think it comes from my background as an immigrant, moving into a whole new country, learning a language, trying to adapt and learn as much as I can to the point where my vocabulary was way better than my peers. And it led me to be very curious with words, with how people alliterate and how they convey their words. And I just thought it was very beautiful. Our words, the way we say them, hold so much power. And that's not the topic of this episode, but it just shows how much I've developed as a writer myself and how much I've discovered about myself and how I've tackled those moments where I feel stuck, where I feel like there's this mental block. And so often when I get these mental blocks, I have to ask myself, what does it mean to be creative? And so I actually was about to journal, and then I landed on this page, which I'll read to you guys here. And I think it's so beautiful because it really relates to how I've challenged myself and what it really truly means to be creative. And this is very authentic. This is very raw. And so, yes, the first part of this is being messy with your craft. Allow your thoughts to just flow. It doesn't need to be perfect. And too often we're so focused on the finished product, the finished piece, when it takes so many drafts to complete a book. You think about all these great writers, right? And you wonder, how long did it take them to create this book? It took them years, through many rough drafts. And one of my favorite writers is Edgar Allan Poe, Maya Angelou, Rupi Kaur, Rumi, I may be missing a few, Atticus, and others. There's a whole list. But those short moments of poetry that they publish has been revised so many times, and I think that's what we're afraid of. We're afraid to release something that doesn't fully reflect who we are. But you know what? Who you are, like the work that you produce in that moment, is a reflection of who you are at that moment. We're ever evolving. We're ever evolving. And so I think that's the hardest part I struggle with too, is completing a poem, completing a project, because I'm afraid that it doesn't fully reflect who I am. But it does reflect the person who I am at that moment, right? And so I have to learn to not take it too seriously, because I wrote it on here. Stop taking it too seriously. It can limit the possibilities. Ease up and release the tensions inside and play. So this is another thing I'd like to get into when it comes to being a creative, is to experiment and to play. I wrote on here that I have many rough drafts of kitchen designs before proposing it to a customer, and that's very true. Usually it takes me about 2 weeks, within 2 weeks, to finish a design, and I go through so many designs before actually presenting it, because your ideas are ever changing. And in your own work, whatever line that is, whatever art you gravitate towards, to just know that just start, just start. What you have is a rough draft. You can always revise it. And so when I feel stuck, when I feel like I have this block, I revisit past ideas. I revisit past poems, because I have so many. I'm a little embarrassed. I have a lot of poems that are unfinished, that's just sitting there. I have maybe over 50 over 50 poems that's unfinished, and so I revisit my past ideas and work from, where I left off. You could also look into your past songs, your past projects, whatever that is for you, whether it's in clothing, whether it's in music, whatever that is. Revisit your past ideas and try to restructure it. Play with it. One thing I found, I didn't really realize it until, as I got a little older. When I was younger, my little sister Bella and I would always play grocery store, pretend like we have a grocery store, or pretend like we have a movie theater, and like we'd do the whole setup and things like that. And so we would use what was around the house, taking canned goods and getting a piece of paper, writing down the prices. We would, one of us would be the cashier, the other would be the customer, and we just start pricing out random objects from our home, whether it's canned goods, whether it's a shoe, whatever it is. We would price it out and pretend like, we're playing grocery store. There's moments where we would grab the dining table, the dining chairs and random chairs we had around the house, and make some popcorn, put it in some cheap lunch bags, those brown bags, we'd put them in, and make these little tickets, cut them out, write the whatever is usually on the ticket, the price and the movie, and pretend like we're playing movie theater. What I'm trying to get at is that when we were younger, we used what was around us. We worked with what we had, and in doing so, we got creative. It was really fun, and I really miss those moments with my little sister, because we played pretend, and we just had fun. And that's my advice to you, to my fellow creatives, is to work with what you have. You would be so surprised to see what you're capable of and what you come up with. I feel like a lot of people are so focused on what they don't have, the right tools, the right equipment, and that's what's holding them back from starting. I used to be that way. I'm like, once I have the right camera equipment, once I have the right papers, once I have the right pens I can work with, I can write a great book, I can make wonderful videos. And when I talk to people who are in the similar fields I'm interested in, whether it's writing, whether it's filmmaking, whether it's photography, it's interesting the stories that they tell you because they tell you about their humble beginnings and working with what they had, and in doing so, they got really creative. And so I advise you to work with what you have because I feel like my best outfits came from the moments I would go thrifting and cut up a bunch of different pieces and put it together. One time I went to Pride and I bought this set and I cut these, what was it? I think it was a really long skirt. I cut it to a mini skirt and I cut a piece of clothing and made it into like a infinity top and made a whole outfit out of, I don't know, $10 at most into a bomb outfit. I also bought this skirt and turned it into a two-piece, making it be a mini skirt and also another infinity top. Super simple, super easy, and super fun. Just seeing how different pieces come together and what you come up with. So, repurposing also your materials that you have, whether it's old content, whether it's old clothing pieces, whether it's old writings, old songs, whatever it is for you, repurpose it. Try to see if you can restructure it. Try to see if you can work with a different rhythm, different flow, a different perspective. Because we don't realize it, but the way we think is biased, and I think it's important to look beyond what we know and to experiment and play. Also, going back to working with what you have, because I wrote this down, limited tools force you to get creative. It's a challenge. And I think of Tyler the Creator. Was it him? It's either Tyler the Creator or Frank Ocean. Somebody in the world of music came up with this hit in their bedroom with using what they had, and it became awesome. I think it might have been Frank Ocean, to think about it. I don't know, but you'd be surprised by all these hit songs you listen to. They were created in somebody's bedroom, not at a studio. Some of the greatest works of art were made at 3 a.m. in their bedroom, and you never know it. You never know it. And so stop waiting for the right moments, for the right equipment, for the right materials, and just do it. When you feel like you have a block, change your environment. That also helps. If you are working, sleeping, and working on your passion projects in the same environment, like what I got in my studio, that's where you feel stuck. Change your environment and go outside, touch some grass, go by a lake, drive off somewhere in the middle of a field and watch the sunset, or go to a library. Whatever that is for you, go and surround yourself in places that inspire you. For me, I love going to art galleries, to museums, to cafes, to libraries, being out in nature, going on a hike, or people watching. I think it inspires me just watching people do their thing, simply existing. And I like to draw up scenarios of what their life might be like and start a poem from that. So take with that what you will. I also believe that Your identity, because I wrote it on here, your identity is a collection of what you do consistently. Let me repeat that. Your identity is a collection of what you do consistently. And so I wrote who I am. I am a writer, more specifically a poet. I am a designer, more specifically becoming an interior designer. I am a creator. I host a podcast. Who are you, truly? And try to identify the core of who you are. It's crazy to think about it, but people think they know themselves. But truth is you don't. You don't really know who you are until I feel like people ask you, or until you're hit with like a midlife crisis, quarter life crisis. If you're me, every month it seems like I have a quarter life crisis, questioning my path and where I'm at. And I have to constantly remind myself that I'm not in a rush. Even though I feel like I'm always in a rush. I think it's my anxiety also kicking in. I hate being late, and so that's another thing. But get to know who you are at the root of all the things that make you happy, things that make you feel alive. Do a deep dive and collect the things that make you happy and try to draw from that. Try to source out that creativity from the things that make you happy. For me, one of the biggest things that make me happy is music and food and making an impact. Those things specifically make me happy, and so does nature. Once you can write down and narrow things down that make you happy, it's so much easier to identify who you are. And when you know who you are, it's so much easier to create from, because you have so many sources you can pull your creativity from your love of nature, your love of food, your love of the arts, your love of architecture, your love for communicating with people, for interacting with people, for making a difference. And I wholeheartedly believe that to be creative means to cultivate from the deepest parts of yourself. In order to do so, you need to learn who you are. You need to discover who you are, and it's going to take you a lifetime because you're constantly changing, you're constantly evolving, you're constantly being introduced to different things, whether it's music, it's food, it's culture, language, whatever it is, you're constantly being shaped and reshaped and reshaped. Just know that who you are right now isn't who you're going to be. Who you're going to be is the person you're trying to become. And the person you're trying to become reflects on what you consistently do. For me, I try to consistently write, but what I've noticed I've done consistently is overthink. To be honest, I am such an overthinker. I'd like to think that I'm a philosopher, because that's something I repeatedly do, is just think about life. What's the meaning of life? What's my purpose? And how can I make an impact? I constantly question what I believe. And in doing so, I'm open to receiving. I feel like so many people, including myself, in the past have been holding on to things. And I think it limits our ability to receive, because our whole being is like an antenna. We'll gravitate towards, or I guess we do also gravitate towards the things that inspire us, but also if you're open to receiving these signals from the universe, from source, whatever it is you believe in, I feel like there's a whole new world waiting for you. Once you unclench your fist and actually be genuinely open to receiving different beliefs, different styles of work, you learn. And I think it's very important to be a student of life. And that's another thing. To be a creative means to be a student of life, constantly learning. And you have to be humble with yourself and come to a realization that you don't know everything. I don't know everything. Gosh, if I knew everything, I feel like I'd be stressed out, to be honest. I feel like that's why we haven't been gifted with all the knowledge. And I feel like it's very overwhelming. And with technology being as advanced as it is, it's overstimulating. All the news we're constantly met with, it's heavy. It's heavy and it's overstimulating. And so when you feel like you're exhausted, when you feel like your social battery is dead, get off your phone. That's the one thing I feel like I've noticed I always gravitate towards when I feel like I want to kill some time, or when I feel stressed, or when I'm bored. I will pull my phone and just scroll endlessly, doom scroll, and then I become overwhelmed and overstimulated, and I just keep scrolling. It's an endless cycle, and awareness is key. So take with that what you will. I feel like as a creative, we're so sensitive. We're very sensitive people. And that's really hard on us because we have to learn to shut certain things out in order to tune in within our own senses. And what I mean by that is the noise from the news, noise from people doubting you, the noise from the chaos going on, from work, from school, whatever it is. There's so much noise, so much static, that to be creative means to learn how to tune those things out. I remember when I was working as a server at Olive Garden, when I'm not, serving tables and I'm waiting for my food, I would read a book. It's funny because people are like, my coworkers would walk by and like, how are you reading right now? Like, I would not be able to focus. And in that moment, I learned to tune out the noise and fully be present in the book that I was reading, because what I was trying to tune out was the chaos going on at the restaurant, and it worked. So find out what works for you and what doesn't. And before I was like, why am I so sensitive? Why am I crying over the littlest things? And it's because I'm a creative. I'm sensitive to everything because I feel things heavily and deeply. And that's another thing I'm trying to let go of, is the aspect of not taking things too seriously, learning to tune it out, the noise anyways, and being open to receiving, because there's so much good that's around. It's about choosing where your focus wants to be. I hope you guys got something out of this episode. I love you, and I hope you try to discover the parts of yourself you have yet to unravel. It's a beautiful experience. I feel like this human experience was a choice, and your existence, you being here, was a choice you made, because not only do you want to experience happiness, but you want to fully immerse yourself in the human experience and what comes with it, sadness and joy. And I feel like that's just the way of life. I'm straying away from the topic, so let me just end it there. I love you guys. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Unraveling Her. I will see you in another episode real soon. Salamat.